Good morning. You are up and awake and here. That's an accomplishment. You know, when I teach, I always tell the students who are sitting in the back that they will have extra homework. So come on up. Dr. Garcia did it right. She's sitting in the front. Now, this is a family, and we'll have a family discussion of how our family is doing. Right? That's what the business meeting is about. You know, you'll see that we seamlessly behave as twins, and so we couldn't have this meeting without our CEO, Dr. Keith Martin, so please join me in thanking him. And then there's a board and the secretariat and all of us who do the work because we're committed, not because there are any dollars attached to it, or any other currency for that matter. So here we go. This morning's purpose is to tell you how we're doing and to learn from you how we can do this better and get some ideas from you. So this is not us telling you what to do or where we are. It is about how do we stay healthy and how do we grow together. And so for those of you who've been coming many years, you know all this, but let me see first-time attendance. First-time attendance, so thank you. Let's recognize those first-time attendants. So we go way back, way before I got involved. And you could see a couple of things about our organization. It's interdisciplinary by nature. Before interdisciplinarity was fancy. It cuts across research, education, service, and advocacy, the core of our mission, the core areas of our strategic plan. And in fact, you'll see by the committees, that's how we function. Really going back to 2008, funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, then merged, two organizations merged to become CUGH, and we're proud of that. We have our secretariat in very, very special and economically safe and prosperous locations in Washington, D.C. You'd have to ask Keith and Dalal about that story. We have both individual and institutional members, and this year we've made some major decisions around how we grow our membership, and I'll come back to that. You could see we have over 177 members across academic institutions, but also community and other organizations and partners. We have a network of over 40,000 individuals worldwide, and as you heard me say yesterday, and embarrassing Dr. Garcia, we are going to be somewhere else in the world than the US in 2027 when we convene again. And we are particularly focused on and really committed to what's happening among those who are most vulnerable, among those who aren't as fortunate as we are in lower and middle income countries. And coming from one of those countries makes it easy for me to have this conversation. And so many of you are either coming from those countries or are dedicated their entire career to that cause. And so we have a structure of a board of 13 voting members, a student representative, and I just came back from their meeting, and what incredible leaders they are. Any members of TAG in here, in our meeting? They're still, of course, they're still working on their action items, and they'll be here shortly. We have 6 officio members from CDC, representing CDC, NIH, the Lancet, the China Consortium, the Canadian Association, and of course our executive director. We mentioned that they're all based in Washington, and you see the motors behind all we do here. And you've heard me yesterday recognizing Dalal for that quiet person that pushes things forward. But there's Norma, there's Sarah, and there's Catherine together with Keith. Here's how we look like. Some of us had fewer gray hairs, but we are here and quite supportive of what we do. I'm so in awe of our board. We had a very productive board meeting on the 6th, and you'll hear much more about what we've accomplished and what we're about to accomplish together in this year. Here's some more of us. Not all of us could be here this year, but we appreciate each of the members who are coming up into leadership and giving their time so generously. And then here are our ex officio members. You probably will recognize many of those. And our outgoing board members, and if they are here, please join me in thanking them. And then, as Dr. Martin already did in our opening session, we are missing a giant among us, but we're celebrating him in a special way this afternoon. Tell me when you're taking over. Okay. Incoming board members. Are any incoming board members here so that we can recognize you? There's one. Thank you. There are committees, as I mentioned to you before. They're really arranged around those 4 areas of our mission. So in addition to the executive committee, members of the executive committee here, we work so hard. They're still working hard. They're not here. I co-chair this, but I know that Nancy is somewhere here. There's Nancy, our incoming chair. The Finance Committee, Phil Landrigan couldn't be with us, and Charles, but they're doing miracle work, as you'll see in a minute. Our Education Committee, yesterday they had a fantastic meeting, and there are so many subcommittees in that education meeting, and we really rely on them to grow the next generation of CUGH leaders. Our Research Committee is so active. We have 2 new chairs, new co-chairs coming in, and I see one of them here, Paul. Is there other co-chair here? Okay, great. But watch that Research Committee. They have a lot that they want to do. Our Advocacy and Communication Committee members here? Not quite yet. Our Global Health Operations Committee, members from the Operations Committee. Fantastic, thank you so much. Our Membership Committee, that's the one that's working so hard. We really are indebted to them to grow our membership. And our Awards and Nominations Committee, and you'll see those results this afternoon. Then there are, as I mentioned before, within the Education Committee, there are 6 subcommittees, and Nancy Reynolds is chairing the Workforce Capacity Committee, co-chairing that. There are a number of educational products. You want to know about those. This year, we'll focus on products coming out of each committee. We're celebrating, I have my gecko on, the Global Health Competency, and if you haven't seen the competencies, PC Catherine Jacobson, and members of that group. Then this morning, the Academic Program Partnership Initiative group met, the Global Health Masters and Undergraduate Program, and then the Trainee Advisory Committee, and I'm so proud of our upcoming leaders. Thank you so much. But there is, if you want to know these, there will be a quiz afterwards. I told you about that. But if you want to know more about those, please visit our website. Then there are working groups, and there are different criteria for what a working group is and how a working group has to behave and has to produce. But you could see those working groups listed, and they do fantastic work. I am part of the planetary health one, and we're very active. And so the 2023 board meeting and the highlights of that in our meeting is, I'm turning this over to our Chief Executive Officer, Keith Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. And as Dr. Lickfield said, this is a two-way street. So we really want to spend lots of time hearing from you because we spend too much time talking sometimes from all of us. But I wanted just to, if I can, for a moment, the current board members. I think did you put your hand up? Current board members from CUGH? CUGH board members? Fantastic. And we also have, we're like the mafia, right? Once we get our talents into you, never leave. So there are former board members here, including our former chair, Dr. Pierre Buchan's here. We've got Dr. Elizabeth Grant, come all the way from Scotland via Columbia. Truly heroic, Liz. We've got Robin Petzold, who was the money for us, keeping us on the straight and narrow during difficult times. And so really, thank you. If I missed anybody, former board members, please put your hands up. Oh, Quinton Eichbaum, Dr. Eichbaum. But as you can see from Quinton's activities and others, he's deeply active in our work. So much thanks to all of you. Also at CUGH, we've been trying to, we've been accused legitimately when we started, we were primarily North American centric, and what we wanted to do is expand that. So there is a number of groups here that are come from afar, and I really want you to raise your hands. Those of you who are from the African continent, thank you so much, honestly. And also for those from Europe, parfait, Français, Germany. And honestly, we know we're going to be working together to expand our relationships across the continent. And Latin America, fantastic. We need more Brazil, right? We were talking yesterday, and more Latin America with Dr. Garcia, which perhaps Patty will share a little bit after this. We've got a very exciting initiative that she's helping to lead. Anyway, so enough about that. But other than to say that, I wanted just to if you can, none of this work happens without the efforts of the team in Washington, D.C. And I'd like you just to stand, please. Dalal, Norma, Sarah, Katie, and Kareen's our intern working for a short time. She'll be leaving us in a week. But please stand, guys. You guys are amazing. I mean, it's a huge lift, right, for all of what they do. And honestly, this would not happen without their efforts. So thanks, guys. You're amazing. All right. Let's get on with it. So this is what came out of the board meeting last year to acquire a strategic plan. And under Dr. Lickfield's leadership, that plan is almost concluded. So we should have that finished in the next couple of months. And then we're looking towards what our human resources needs to meet our operational goals, because we're quite understaffed, as you can appreciate, in the office. We want to continue to diversify our membership in geography and discipline. And your help will be required in this effort, because one of the challenges, of course, is how do we engage with the non-biomedical disciplines? We know that we're heavily focused on the biomedical, but we need each other, right? We need the biomedical and the non-biomedical. So your help in being able to bring in the non-biomedical folks and also other sectors, including out of academia, that are actually engaged in global health will be really important for us. So we really appreciate any connections that you can make. Finances, we'll talk about that, but we're going to, in a minute, we're going to trying to diversify our donor base and increase collaboration with overseas members. And you'll hear a lot of good work that AfriHealth has been doing, we've been doing with AfriHealth, and we're deeply grateful for the leadership for the African Forum for Research and Education in Health. And I want to also showcase Dr. Andrew Dykins and Professor Reynolds. They helped to lead with the leadership of AfriHealth a new capacity building site, CUGHcapacitybuilding.org. And Andrew created this neat little card with a QR code on it. If you want one, I'll give you one. But we really need you to use the site, please, and please share this widely, because this is a mechanism and a platform that can help institutions with needs to match it with those who have the capacity to work with them to help to strengthen their training needs. So it's extremely helpful. And so please, if you want one, I'm Andrew's person to take this and share this. All right. In our conference, I'll briefly go through this. Some of you, who was here at the conference in DC? Great. So our 2023 conference was our first in-person conference, 1,600 plus attendees. The interesting thing, couple of things to point out on this. Number one, we've been trying, as I said before, to collaborate with others. So what we were able to do for the first time is to be able to have the M8 Alliance based in Berlin to have their first international meeting in North America. That meeting, and I want to thank Dr. Buchans because he started that relationship many years ago. It took a couple of years of negotiation with them, but they held their first in-person meeting next to ours. So their attendees coming primarily from Europe were able to come to Washington and then come to our conference right after. So that was the goal, how we can actually use our convening power to bring folks together. The other part, we also worked with the Association of Academic Health Centers. These are all the big teaching hospitals in North America. They have a meeting, and I had discussions over a couple of years with them and said, well, why don't you come and have your meeting next to ours? Eventually it happened, so they also had their meeting. So it was a really nice way for us to cross-pollinate between three groups. And this is our membership. As Dr. Lickfield said, we're at 177 members. If you include those that are in arrears, it goes to 192 members. So we've had a nice arc growing over time, but we have, obviously the rate of growth has flattened out when you exhaust the number of groups that are involved in global health. So we really appreciate your help in connecting to new groups, new organizations around the world. I'm going to just briefly go through the operations committee. We can share these slides with you. The research committee will share these slides with you. Education committee has a lot of amazing work. All these committees are doing phenomenal work, and we encourage you to take a look at their work, which is on our website, but we'll also share this with you, but we want to give lots of time for to and fro here. Advocacy and communications. When we're in Washington, we run an in-person meeting to be able to give our members a chance to meet with congressional offices. So we ran a Hill Day. 60-plus meetings were held to advocate for funding for NIH and CDC, their global health programs. We'd like to do more outside because people say, well, aren't you advocating in other countries? We can't do that, but people in those countries can. And so how we're squaring that circle is that we partnered with the Global Health Technology Coalition to run 2 training sessions on how to advocate. Now, we recognize that advocacy is very specific to the context that you're in, but we hope that that at least provides some help in the advocacy work that you're doing. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, Katie helps to do that every month. It comes out in the middle of the month. Please go on our website, CUGH.org, and sign up for our monthly newsletter. It's all things global health around the world. Our in-person conference here, we have 1,400 plus attendees, 240 speakers, over 500 posters. And I want to really thank all of the sponsors who have helped to support us. I will share, there was a discussion this morning, or a question actually in the student group about why we don't provide free registration and free accommodation and food. Well, it's a matter of money, right? We don't have a kind benefactor. Jeff Bezos is not my brother. If he's yours, please make the contact. We appreciate that. Or anybody else who has more money than God. Please connect us to them because we really appreciate diversifying our funding base and having sources of funding that we can provide more support for people to come to our conference. I want to thank the host institutions who are there, we mentioned before, and the local organizing committee sponsors. We're deeply grateful to you. These are the revenue sources for us, and our 2 primary sources are our annual membership, the money we get from membership. That responds to about 60% of our revenue. Our annual conference, which is about maybe 25% of our revenue. We have had other grants in the past, and Dalal does a great job. We work together to put out about 10 grant applications every single year. But again, not knowing the people there is a really rate limiting step for us. So if you have contacts with any funders, particularly all those little foundations that exist that have a lot of money, deliver a lot of money, but you don't really know too much about them, we need to make friends with them. So if you have friends and foundations that are happy, that need to kick money out of the door every year for their own conscience, we're happy recipients of those funds. We do a lot of work to reduce inequities in global health, and we work really closely, as I mentioned, with AfroHealth leadership to that effect. A lot of our work that we do, the leadership is co-led, or there's deep involvement of LMIC institutions in our work. But there's a whole list there we can share later on if you have any questions. The future activities, completing the strategic plan. We want to expand our capacity building work that Professor Reynolds and Dr. Dykins has helped to lead. We want to strengthen the working group activities that we have and increase our operations, of course, diversify our funding model so we have more buckets from where we get the funding. We're in good condition funding right now, and our resources are healthy, but it's never a good idea, of course, to have your funds in a few buckets. These are the upcoming conferences that we have, our board of directors, as I mentioned before, our staff, and thanks very much. I will finally just to say on the financing side, as I said, we are healthy from a financial perspective, but an important part of us is, again, seeking out new grants and opportunities to be able to support our programmatic activities. We need those resources to build out our team in Washington to deliver the programs you want. So with that, I'll close and just say we would really take this opportunity for Dr. Leckfield and myself to really share, give us the advice of what you want. What can CUGH do to support you? What can we do better? What should we not be doing? Let us know what we should be doing, okay? Thanks very much. Actually, if you go to the mic in the back, please, and then, oops. You go to the mic and then line up, we'll take questions. Thank you.
Is it on?
It's on. Mm-hmm.
So I'm coming to the mic first to get into good trouble. As John Lewis, the civil rights activist, said, I think we need to get into good trouble here. And I really want to hold you accountable for the very weak press statement and the complete lack of any session on Gaza. I think you do yourself CUGH does itself a disservice by not directly addressing that issue. The press statement, I think, and most people who've read it see it as a pro-Israel statement. It mentions only Israel. It doesn't even mention the word Palestine. I think we need to engage ourselves in deep self-reflection. If we cannot engage an issue like that head-on for fear of whatever reprisals, it isn't. Some issues are morally unambiguous. That is the slaughter of women and children is morally unambiguous. And I say this as someone of Jewish heritage, to stand up. That's what CUGH should be about, the weak and the disadvantaged and the people who are at the mercy of a military-industrial complex, whatever you want to call it. I think you get the message, but I think we really need to address it. We can't just brush it aside. I don't accept this notion that universities can't take sides and they need to be neutral and that they're only for knowledge production. That is not the function of a university. We really need to decide who we are, and if we can't, we're a neo-colonial institution or organization. So I'd like you really to take this seriously. I'm wearing the scarf for that particular reason, and I can't tell you how many people have come up to me at this meeting and thanked me for wearing it and said how deeply disappointed they've been that CUGH has not put out an adequate press statement and has not addressed the issue anywhere in this conference, that being the major conflict in the world today. So thank you.
Thank you. So we have, thank you, Quentin. We have seriously thought about it. The situation that we're a network of many, and one of the challenges that we face is that the situation, as you know, is changing fastly. It's changing fast and fastly. And so we are of course, part of in our advocacy committee, we clearly have our focus on what's happening around the world and what's involved in each one of us. And the executive team took seriously all of the voices, and that's the statement that came out was an agreement, a consensus from the full board. And so, but that doesn't mean that individually we can't advocate. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I still think, maybe you should know that people are not happy with this. And the situation is changing fast, but that doesn't mean that you cannot address it more directly and openly. And for instance, I have the press statement in front of me. I can read it. First of all, it only mentions Israeli deaths, and it exaggerates them a little bit, gets it wrong, even the statistic is wrong. The word Palestinian isn't even mentioned. Something like that has nothing to do with how fast the situation is changing. Okay, that's got nothing to do with how fast the situation is changing. We know now that over 30,000 people have changed, and that needs to be addressed. I would like to know, why is there not a single session here addressing this issue? I can't believe that nothing was submitted. I can't believe that. I think it was considered too politically, tricky for us to do it. Taking a stance, sometimes you have to, and not taking a stance is taking a stance, really. And people have noticed. So I think we need to put out a stronger press statement. We need to at least put the word Palestinian in this press statement. It doesn't even mention Palestine, it mentions other people, So I would strongly advise you, because people are noticing.
Thanks, Quentin. So, a couple of thanks, Quentin. I can say there actually, much to my surprise, there actually wasn't a panel that was submitted and adjudicated in the top 42 that went to the Executive Planning Committee for. It surprised me immensely that didn't happen. I can say that there were sessions on Gaza in our meeting in 2023, and we have had them before. Second, there's a really good letter that the folks at Professor Bui and others have put together. It is very specific prescriptions that are related to the current situation, calling for a ceasefire, calling for immediate access to all humanitarian aid, the release of the hostages, and the pursuit of a two-state solution. And if those pursue a very rapid movement towards a two-state solution,
I actually need to speak right now.
And the halting of the sale of weapons to Israel if this continues, so that the U.S. is not contributing to the unconscionable deaths of people in Gaza. So TUI has that. People, as an organization, it's taken a stand, as Professor Lickfield said. But as individuals, people can sign on to that letter, which is a letter to President Biden and the White House. So TUI can share that widely. Sorry?
Sorry, if I can have my chance here. So I just wanted to, Adam Levine from Brown University, and as a first-time attendee, it's always a little dangerous to get up at the mic. I fully support Good Trouble and fully support everything that you're talking about. But what I don't support is the erasure of some of our colleagues who actually did have a session. If you had attended it on Thursday at 4:30 p.m., there was a session that went into great depth about Gaza. In fact, it had global emergency physician colleagues of mine who've been working on the ground in Gaza, talking about the horrific situation there, talking about the work that they're doing with colleagues on the ground to respond to the humanitarian crisis, and also presenting really innovative research that some of our colleagues are doing, being able to document the destruction of healthcare facilities and how that destruction compares to other humanitarian settings around the world. The session covered not just Gaza, but also other important humanitarian crises and conflicts around the world, which unfortunately have not gotten as much attention but should, such as the recent devastation in Tigray, which killed over 300,000 people that very few have mentioned, as well as the current conflict in Ukraine. but this was covered very in depth at the session led by some of my global emergency medicine colleagues on Thursday, and I feel the repeat statement that there has been nothing discussed about Gaza actually erases the really good scholarship and work that my colleagues on the ground in Gaza have been doing, and that was presented at this meeting on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. I do hope that you will review that session when the PowerPoints at least are published, because there was some really good information I think we could all learn from. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Sorry. Can I make sure that we get those PowerPoints so we can share them widely? We'd really appreciate that. I wasn't aware. Sorry about that. And then the second thing, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is our next-door neighbor in Washington, a leading think tank in the world, they put out a whole series on Gaza. We have shared those widely. You can get them on our website. There's a series of videos. They did that with Syria. They've done it with Ukraine. They've now done it with Gaza. And it's a series on Gaza that you can get. And please look at it. Please share it. We've done that. So please do. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not denying that people are involved in working there. That was a session on the medical kind of situation in Gaza. I'm talking about drawing attention to and taking more of a moral stance about what is happening in Gaza. And so that's the perspective I'm taking. And I know I've met surgeons here who are working in Gaza, and I'm not denying that the work is being done. But I think CUGH as an organization needs to be more forthright. And I'm also aware of that letter, as you know. We haven't been able to circulate it. We've tried to put it on some of the desks here, and people were too scared of the letter. I don't know what's going on, why people are afraid of signing it even. But if you would like to sign it, I don't know if we're allowed to distribute it through CUGH channels, but you know, it's hard having one physical letter and getting physical signatures on it, but there's got to be a better way of distributing and getting signatures on that letter.
Thank you. Next, please.
Thank you. I appreciate this gentleman's views in terms of, yes, I mean, the genocide in Gaza needs to be addressed. And yes, in the pre-satellite, I was here on Thursday. Unfortunately, I missed that. I didn't see it. Wasn't clear to me. But the Holocaust happened because not enough good people stood up to speak out. What I wanted to also mention, first of all, I love that you're in Los Angeles. I love the work that you're doing. I think, like, if you're wanting feedback from myself as an individual attending, I'm a physician. I am based here in Los Angeles. I work at a community health clinic. One of the things that I, as an attendee, just got the feeling of, and I mentioned this yesterday in one of the forums, was it feels compartmentalized. Like, what I would like to see is maybe the first day having a keynote speaker, whether it's a secretary, UN General Secretary, talking about the state of the world, just like we have the State of the Union, and just really going over the different problems in all of the different continents, and then sharing some of that experience that you talked about yesterday, Dr. Martin, stories, and having maybe our political officials come in and open it to the public so that we are an institution educating all of us and the public as well as political officials so we can maximize the impact. And that was the title and theme for this year's conference. Secondly, when I saw that, the vendor, Starbucks, was being used at this conference, I just thought that was so insensitive, being on the boycott, divestment, and sanction list. And if we're going to be culturally sensitive and we have a genocide going on, the least we can do is find vendors that are not on that list. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Respond to. If I may, this is the little challenge that we.
No, let's.
Want to go ahead?
Let that all go.
No? Just, we didn't have a choice with the Starbucks issue, just to let everyone know, because that was from the hotel. Like, we have to purchase from the hotel under our contract, or we don't get coffee at all. So I'm sorry about that.
Yep.
So just explain how keynote speakers are selected. I don't know whether there are members here of the hardworking local organizing committee. It goes through a very rigorous selection process and nominations, and then it takes months for us to identify a speaker who is available and who will join us. And so we don't necessarily do that lightly. And we've looked at international and had international speakers in the past. But Keith, maybe you want to.
Spot on.
So, Good, thank you, please.
Hi, Kim Hong from Johns Hopkins. I just wanted to point out an observation that I have. I think that CUGH, as a consortium of universities for global health, my observation is that there hasn't been enough of emphasis on global health within Asian countries. And Asian countries comprises of around 50% of the world. So for global health, I think that we can do more to address and bring up and kind of see what's happening in other regions of the world, such as Southeast Asia. As someone who's lived in the US for the past 5 years, I've seen news about Ukraine, Russia conflict. I've seen Gaza-Israel conflict. Thank you, sir, for bringing that up. Something that I've not seen is conversations around conflicts happening in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar, for example. So I just think that I just wanted to know what could be done more to bring attention to other regions of the world as well. That's my first point. And second, I'm a Master's of Engineering student, and I've seen a lot of people involved in global health are in MPH and MD. And I was wondering if there's space for someone like me in engineering to also be able to contribute either in terms of committee or in other ways towards global health. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's one of the things that we discussed in the board meeting too, is expand beyond where we already are. Yesterday afternoon, I was in a session where I learned a lot what's going on in South Korea, for example. There are many of us, and I'm looking at Dr. Reynolds, who is very involved in Asia and others. To cover the entire world, just like you said, that this is fantastic feedback. Thank you very, very much. Latin America and South America and the Caribbean are areas that are completely void of, almost completely void of participation in this conference, and those are also areas of the world that we need to focus on. In terms of engineering, I'm married to one, and I can't thank you enough for bringing that up. We are by definition an interdisciplinary, actually a transdisciplinary group, and so pointing that out is clear, and so there's a lot of work that we can start doing now. We're beginning actually tomorrow to work on the 2025 conference, and keeping that in mind, in Atlanta, we're surrounded by some excellent engineering schools as well, but around the world too, so thank you so much for bringing that up. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm Jibril. I'm a psychiatrist. I come from Somaliland. I'm doing my fellowship at the Institute of Global Health at UCSF in San Francisco. I have two important questions for you. The first one, are we afraid or we don't want to talk about issues of global health that we ignore? People who are stateless, for example, in the Rohingya, or also organ harvesting for the Uyghur Muslims. I think we need to talk about that. And as someone who was doing his psychiatry residency in Ethiopia when the government was using rape as a systematic way to wipe out the Tigray people, did we talk about that too? And I had to treat many people with PTSD, depression from Tigray myself as a psychiatry resident in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you. And it really shows that a lot of problems that we have and the importance of advocacy that our organization has as a focus area. All of this morning and your emphasis on that brings new life and extended life to the advocacy committee. So I really suggest that you join that committee as well.
So just, if I could, Jibril,
Please,
so just
yeah.
to say that we actually had the situation with the Uyghurs, the situation in Myanmar in our conference. We also independently have run specific webinars on trying to deal with conflict, pre-conflict, the role of academic institutions in conflict, early warning signs, the issue that the international governance and structures that are failing to actually prevent conflict and human rights abuses. And we've worked with Professor Rubenstein at Hopkins, who does an amazing job, Professor Levy at Harvard and others. And those webinars are actually on CUGH's website, cugh.org. Please look at them because we've done extensive work in this space. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Barbara Kamholtz. I'm a geriatric psychiatrist from UCSF, and I'm very concerned about the fact that we don't spend enough time talking about older people. This is a universal, this is a worldwide issue. The population is aging everywhere. However, in low and middle income countries, the rate of aging is 2 to 3 times that of countries that are more prosperous, which also don't have enough, resources. At present, 2/3 of people over 60 are in low and middle income countries. And within about 10 years, it's going to be 3/4, and they have almost no geriatric resources. So I think we really need to advocate and raise the level of awareness so more people are involved and more, acutely sensitized to the need to think about these issues, because otherwise it's going to exert, aside from any humanitarian issues or social justice issues, it's going to have a huge, impact on healthcare systems and on individual families that will not be able to manage increasing illness and disability in their own relatives. And in Nepal, where I work, that means that, families really can't survive if they have members in the household who are not able to work. And there are many older people, but they're also living a lot longer. The lifespan in Nepal in 1950 was 28, it's now 72, which is just warp speed. So that is another issue, the unfamiliarity with issues such as dementia and the needs for rehabilitation in older people that can really reverse some of these trends. So I'm just trying to increase the level of awareness and do whatever I can to try to help CUGH promote that.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. There are concretely at least 2 opportunities to do that in the 2025 conference. The free satellite sessions that Keith always brings up, and that would be a fantastic opportunity as a topic, and also as panels that we encourage to do. I couldn't agree with you more that the science of aging is critical.
Can I also just compliment Professor Kamholtz, Barbara? You've been doing an absolutely amazing job working with the Nepalese. Honestly, it's a model of sensitive engagement with another country on dealing with a compelling challenge, working with the nursing community there, and we can learn so much from what you're doing.
Yes.
And know that our commitment. Professor Liz Grant is here. She arrived from Columbia today. She's an ally, and so there's others. And if we can work with you to actually, as Professor Lickfield mentioned, we can work together to actually create an ongoing working group on healthy aging, then we can assert the solutions that countries may be able to use or modify for their own objectives. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did start, the co-chair is Sri Mahankali, the geriatrics working group within CUGH, so hopefully people will contribute ideas to that as well. Thank you very much.
But in addition to the fantastic work that you're doing, bringing it to the whole conference and all the members in 2025 would be such a unique opportunity. Thank you. Let's go to this microphone. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for the very informative session so far. This may have been a question I think, Keith, I may have asked last year, but
can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Tally from University of Louisville and ScholarX. Organized health professions education, I see, are increasingly focusing on a lot of topics that have global health implications or very much have global health. So there were major plenary sessions in the last year at major meetings like AAMC and so forth on climate change, social accountability, conflict issues and their impact on health in general. And so just remind me, how is CUGH potentially, or what's the history of CUGH's interactions with like organized medicine like AAMC, AACN, IAMZ, AME, those are kind of like the big North American, and so I'm just curious if, are there opportunities to really connect with their folks and their leadership?
Yeah. So structurally, Tal, first I just want to people should talk to you about ScholarX. It's an amazing story that you have in terms of going to now 500 modular units in medical education. So really kudos to you and your team. It is an amazing, amazing success story that people should speak to you about ScholarX. So structurally what we have is we have an education committee and 7 subcommittees, one of which Professor Reynolds leads, but there's 7 subcommittees in that. We've got competencies, we've got educational products. The way structurally for them to engage is those subcommittees will engage with other organizations to be able to feed in and build those relationships. That's why structurally we created this model of committees, subcommittees, and then the power to engage and build is in their hands. So they will build the relationships. And I know you worked with our education committee members in the past, and we're really grateful for that, Tao, but maybe we need to do a
So just as a follow-up question, would they be the appropriate people to refer, like, for example, Ann Lloyd, who's the CEO of Amy, Ann Farmakides, the Director of Strategy at AAMC.
Yeah.
So,
well, please actually, we'll connect offline.
Okay.
I'll connect you to them, and then we'll get the ball rolling, and I'll get you to the right people.
Great.
Okay? Thank you, Tao, very much.
So I just want to also mention, I thought I saw Dr. Wasserheit walking in, but Dr. Wasserheit, Judy, and Peter, and so many of us, several of us are working on a perspective from 2009 when we defined what global health is to what global health is now, and doing that from a multi-health professionals perspective, from an interdisciplinary perspective is right on. So let's connect about that as well. Thank you so much. Yes, next please. We have about a few minutes left, but please.
Great, thank you. I just have a short comment. So
Can you? We can't hear you. At least I can't hear you.
It's because I'm too short. Thank you. I just have a short comment. My name is Shauna Novak. I'm from the Canada International Scientific Exchange Program, CISIPO, and also Harvard Medical School. And what I'm hearing around me is a general feeling, and I felt this last year as well, of disinclusivity. I wanted to hear a little bit more about the different approaches and also make a suggestion to the board of directors and the convening committee for this conference, because I'm tremendously grateful for all of those who've been working furiously to put this conference together, because it's no easy task, and also to maintain continuity for all the different working groups and events that happen throughout the year for those who are members. At the same time, I think there is somewhat of a disconnect, and I think that that's solvable. And I think that in order to go about solving it, that it might behoove us to come together to create some sort of working group specifically tasked with a dual function. One, to work on next year, 2025, reaching out to have broader representation and access for those who are coming from areas that are not represented here today or represented to a lesser extent. Because of financial barriers, because of visa barriers, because of all different types of reasons for not being able to participate, including that this isn't a hybrid meeting. Secondary to that, the working group would be tasked with reaching out immediately to not just institutions, but civil society actors and those who are working within the global ecosystem to build engagement on an immediate basis now, moving forward, so that by the time we get to the 2025 conference, we're already in a good position to not just have broader engagement and representation, but we can actually speak to what's been done in countries like Rwanda that have fantastic programs going on, in Haiti, in Somaliland, yes, in Palestine as well. For all of those who are interested, by the way, in the Middle East and what's happening there, I'm presenting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on a specific intervention that I've piloted that addresses health equity, gender equity, and the development of peaceful societies, piloted in the West Bank. So I really encourage you, if you're interested, to come out and hear a little bit about this particular project, because it's translatable to other contexts. And those are the issues that are on my mind right now, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about whether that's even feasible. So the idea of creating a working group like that can have that dual task of both looking forward to the conference and also the ecosystem engagement through the coming year.
Thank you. Why don't we ask the two questions, let the two other colleagues, and then I will respond to all three in the interest of time, because there is one issue that I'd like to bring up before we leave. Our colleague behind you, and then we'll come back to this microphone, please.
I'm really tall, so. My name is Keisha Colomontañez. I'm a fourth-year undergraduate at the University of Chicago. And my question is, as a first-generation college student, I have found that getting involved in the field of global health law and human rights has been incredibly difficult and somewhat unapproachable compared to fields like MD and PhD that are sort of a straightforward path. My question is, as a future scientist and global health professional, how can I introduce myself into this field? And are there any programs being driven by CUGH to do so?
Thank you. This microphone, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first time coming here. Yes. And so for me, it's a great way to be going back into attending conferences. And I think what I'm going to suggest is in line with the first question before hers, which has to do with connecting with organizations. So one of the things I've really appreciated with the presentations I've attended is the fact that many of them are coming from community-based organizations. We know how this works. You have the community-based organizations, you have the community health workers. Now, part of the challenge with some of these individuals and being able to do this kind of work or be able to present this kind of work is usually because they don't have the technical skills. They may not have the academic background. They may not be able to frame it the way we'll frame it in academics. So I want to suggest to CUGH, similar to what I did when I was with APHA with the Caucus Collaborative, of creating linkages with community organizations. I know it's a lot, but this is what I'm suggesting. Maybe mid-year meeting, having webinars whereby we're able to bring them together to talk about what they're doing and help them to start creating these documents, be it white papers, that they themselves can be proud of doing. Because then it's a way of building the capacity for these organizations. And so I know we're academics and we talk about academic community partnerships, but maybe want to take it a step further, but actually having something that they can use. Because if you do a webinar, they wouldn't have to leave their home, right? They can participate in that. It's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. I'm eager to answer that question, but let's hear from our last colleague, please.
Good morning again. I don't know. Can you hear me?
When you speak up, yes.
Okay. So just to emphasize, I think we really can make more of an impact with education. And one of the issues that I wanted to bring up was immigration. And all we hear is about, putting up a border and all of this, where we could actually educate why are people from Central America coming to the U.S., what's going on in those countries, and really get an in-depth understanding and make this and disseminate this information so that we can have an impact on what's happening in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And so in order of the questions, this is such a rich meeting, and I'll come back to the one question that I have, but in order of the questions that came, let me ask Keith to talk about how a conference comes together, how a local organization, the local planning organization get engaged, because that was one of the first questions.
Yeah, I'll just go through, if I may, because there's a whole series of things that I can inform you about. The first, Shauna, on the issue of to overcome the inclusion issue. We run hybrid sessions. We ran 39 webinars last year on a broad range of issues. People around the world could actually run them. They're on our website. They're freely accessible, and they're shareable. Mm-hmm. The second thing is to run a hybrid session. If we ran this one session from a hybrid, it would cost us $18,000. So you can imagine it's completely financially not doable to be responsible to the organization to do that. Keisha, on the issue of global health law, it just so happens that, lucky us, Professor Sophia Gruskin on the back, Professor Gruskin, she's a lawyer, a global health leader, and one of the members of the executive planning committee for our conference. So she's here, Larry Gostin, Professor Gostin from the O'Neill Center. Please engage them while you're here. You can use the conference app to do that. So there are a number of global health law leaders that are here. Please engage them. On the issue of immigration, we're actually dealing with some of the drivers, not all of them, but some of them. Yesterday morning, there was a powerful presentation on the issue of weapons that are flowing from here into Mexico and Latin America that are contributing to the extreme violence in that part of the world. So we've been working for a few years with Professor Hargarten and Jonathan Lowy from the Brady Institute and others, creating a whole coalition of academic and non-academic partners, civil society, to be able to assert here in the United States what is necessary to stop the egregious flow of small arms into Mexico and Latin America, which has been happening without restriction for many years and is creating a hugely unstable environment there. So just to know that we're working with those groups and those associations. Finally, on the issue of different groups within the panels, you have to be an academic member, as Professor Lickfield mentioned. To order to have a panel in our conference, you have to be a member of CUGH. There has to be some value proposition to joining the organization. But once you are, those institutions can actually partner with other groups that are not CUGH members to be part of their panels. And we encourage them to do that because one of the requirements we have, it has to be gender diversity, geographic diversity, discipline diversity, and we hope sexual diversity. So we really encourage that to try to have that cross-pollination. Thanks so much.
So let me come back to that last point. There are a number of us, including myself, that do community-based participatory research and community-engaged and citizen science. It's really our responsibility, particularly also since members of our organization are not only academic institutions, there are other organizations as well. So it's our responsibility to make sure that when we talk about our research, when we present our interventions, that it includes the leaders and the partnerships. Like you mentioned, I could not do anything, any research, whether I was in the Gulf in Louisiana or in the Amazon rainforest or in the neighborhoods near Pittsburgh, without community leaders. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for pointing that out. Now, one last thing before the next session starts is we cannot, the majority of our funds to be able to convene this conference and all the webinars and all the activities that committees do are dependent on membership. It is always risky to have only one basket of eggs. And so it really is important for us, one, to grow our membership, as we started to talk early, and second, to network, to identify other sources of funds so that we can bring many more together, that we can have conferences for many, many years, and that we can grow and exist as an organization. There are organizations that can't do that. And so we are in a very fortunate position now with a very positive financial situation, but we need to work on it together, and that's not only the task of the board. And so growing our membership and identifying resources for us to be financially healthy are critical points for us to be able to be as a family of institutions in global health. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.